In this video I'm going to add routing to the application. So routing is the process of having the URL change when I change the view in the application. For example, I click the plus button to add a new activity, the URL should change. I select an activity, the URL should change, and so on. So right now these are the only two views we have, and I'm going to use Rich Router, which is a library, is this very good project, and let's go. So I'm going to install the library using this command here in the terminal. I'm going to quit the application, so I press Ctrl+C to close. It was running npm start, and now I call npm install rich/router. So this rich/ something is the way organizations can create a namespace in npm and have their own name for each project they create. They could have rich / something else, and it's cool to centralize all the packages one organization makes into one under one tree, basically. So okay, the installation is done. I can run npm start again, and we now have Rich Router working. So here is the project, and instead of looking at the official documentation which lives in this website here, which you can go and look at, I'm going to use my own notes, because I made a tutorial on Rich Router which is not yet published, so I can't show you it on my blog, but it will be published there in the future. So basically what we need to do here is we need to import the router at the top of our application. So here is where we define the routes, the components we add into the application. So I'm going to say import router from rich/router, and to use this I'm going to wrap everything into the app return. Here you can see the JSX. I'm going to wrap everything here in a router object. So everything, I move everything up one level, and then I close the router. So this is a parent component that will wrap everything else in the application. So once we do this operation here, we are able to do this nice thing. We are able to add the path attribute or prop to every component. So we can say that the add activity path here is add activity with a slash, because it will be a root URL which starts from the domain. And then I can add the same. So this is the I can use a new. So here I used we have 2 times the add activity component, because the first time is when we add an activity from the home page, and the other one is when we add an activity from the activities list. So the difference lies in the workflow, so where we are going to put the user when they use the back button, if you remember from the video where I added this thing. And so we must have 2 different paths for those 2 things. So in the previous one, which is the home page, if we are coming from the home page, it's the first time we add an activity. So actually, let me use this style of URLs. I don't want to have an uppercase letter. I prefer dashes. So I can use start, for example, here, or add the first activity, for example. So the home page will have the path equals slash, and the activities list will have the path which is path equals activities. Cool. So I can now reload the application. So unexpected empty object pattern, activity detailed empty state screen. So unexpected empty object pattern. Let me see on Google what does this mean. The empty object pattern is a mistake. Let me see. Empty object. Where does this error comes from? Because we didn't have this error before adding the paths, if I remember. So let me see. Okay, here we have a bigger error. So if I remove the router altogether, everything works. But we already had this error here, so that's not anything we should worry. So I removed everything using Command Z to undo the changes, but now I think that saving added the change. Now I can't redo the things I made. It's something I usually do, but today it didn't work. Okay, so I'm redoing the changes I did previously. Here in the home page I'm using path equals slash. Here I'm using path equals add first activity. Then here I'm using path equals add activity, and here is path equals slash activities. Okay, so I think I know what is happening. Let's see, activities. Okay, so the activities, we can see the activities when we go to the slash activities URL, but not when we are accessing the root domain here. And the problem, I think, the problem lies in how we handled this URL thing previously. So what we can do to fix this is we need to go and revisit the logic I used up to now. So the first thing is that I need to figure out what is happening. So if I go in the homepage component, so the homepage component uses the setScreen API. So the setScreen is defined here in the app component, and it uses the activities. So we are using the screen variable to store the current screen we want to display. For example, here I say use state activities to determine that So I use state activities to determine that the initial state is the activities list. And let me see how many times do I use this this method. I use it, I think, about 10 times, because this says 23 results, but actually it's a lot less, because if we remove the props, setting the props and receiving the props, it's a lot less times. So right now, when we load the page, this URL, I say use the activities screen. So if I go to find out where the screen is, so where the screen is put into action, the screen property is put into action here, as you can see in the JSX. So here I say if the screen is the home page, display the home page, but now this is handled by rich router. So let me remove all those checks here, which are fine when you're starting out, but now we want the URL to change, and it's not easy to do. There are a lot of things to consider, and why doing the work of a library, right? Cool. So let me add some space between those components. All right. Perfect. So I think we are going to remove the set screen prop also. But now let's first try. Okay, the URL here is correct, correctly displaying the home page. If I say /activities, perfect, it's displaying the activities. And if I click the plus button, nothing happens, because we are using set state. Instead, what we need to do, since set state does not work anymore, set screen, sorry, does not work anymore, we need to do this. So I described here in my tutorial that we can programmatically change the route. So using the navigate object from rich router. So let me see where we are handling this button. So I think that I'm using the plus sign. Maybe not. What I can do to find this without reasoning about the code is to find the button element. It's in activities list. All right. So this onClick calls the set screen, passing the add activity string. But what we want to do is I'm going to import the navigate object, and then I'm going to call it passing the new URL I want to use. So the add activity, instead of add activity, I'm going to use this URL here. Okay, so let me see if this works. We should have, okay, we have the URL changed and the form shows up. So by pressing the back button, nothing works, because again, we need to remove all the use of set screen. So right now here it's not used, I can remove it. Let me go again into add activity. Okay, here's the back button, and I'm going to navigate to /activities. Navigate is not defined because we need to import it here. Then I'm also using set screen in another place, set screen here in add activity. Okay, I'm going to change this to navigate to the activities list. Perfect. So another thing I want to do now is, let me search for set screen again, and I can remove the set screen prop here. Okay, so set screen is also used. Let me see the actual use. So okay, in the home page we have this call. I can remove set screen from here, so we don't have any prop. And instead of calling add activity from home page, I'm going to trigger the URL add first activity. I need to import navigate again. All right. So now I can switch to this file here, which we have a set screen call to switch to the activities list. Sorry, here I need to call navigate to /activities. All right. Next, we have this. Well, I think we are not using set screen anymore because the only usage I see here is props. So yeah, let me remove this altogether. Set screen equals set screen. I'm going to make a find and replace. I'm going to replace this with nothing. First I need to search, and then I can say replace everything with nothing. Okay, as you can see here, it's been removed, and I press then Option Command S to save all the files. Let me find again set screen. It's used here, and that was the last place. Cool. All right. Let me go here. Okay. If I press start, we have this add first activity. Cool. And if I go to activities, all right. The last thing I want to do is when I select an activity, I want to show, instead of activities, I want to add something here. I want to add the ID of the activity. So right now I'm going to use the ID of the activity in IndexedDB, but later on when we are going to use GraphQL in the next lessons, GraphQL is coming, we are going to find a way to figure out how to handle activities that are local, for example, when we are using the application offline, and when we are online, so we are using the GraphQL data. So right now I'm just going to use the ID which comes from IndexedDB, and to do this I need to go into activities list here. Let me see. So I want to find the code that is executed when one activity is clicked, and so I'm calling the set current activity. So what I want to do here is I want to call the navigate function to point the URL to this activity. So the activity will have, so we call navigate, and we will have activities / the activity key, which is what we get from IndexedDB. So navigate is not defined because we need to import it from rich router. Okay. So now to define like this particular route, we need to go here in the activities. So in the app component, we have the activities path here. Actually, I think yeah, I think I can remove all those slashes here. It's cleaner. And what I can do here is say slash and this symbol here, which basically says that everything inside the under this activities slash something will be handled in the activities component. So this is something I read here in the root component document of the rich router documentation. So basically it says, where it is here, it says that admin slash everything, which is defined by the wildcard symbol, is going to be handled in the admin component. So the paths in there, which we define normally as it was the router here, we are basically doing the same thing except under the activities namespace basically. So this is very cool because it allows us to define many different pieces of the architecture of the URL structure of the application, dividing everything into components. You think like component-based architecture. So I can import the router in the activities component here. I import the router and then I say down below, I just wrap this, if I recall correctly, router, and then we add a closing tag below and just wrapping this component because this is what defines the URL. So here I will have a path which is activity ID. Okay, so I go back to the application. So I don't see anything right now. So I need to figure out why. Okay, I am dumb because I didn't save the application component. So now as soon as I save the application component, nothing still works. Actually, we have a very bad thing in here. So as you can see, can you see the URL? So this is because I removed the I removed the slash here at the beginning of the video. I don't know why I did that. So if I now remove all this thing in here and I okay, no, it's not working again. It's not working. You can see? Can you see this? So let me figure out why. Maybe I need a slash. Let me see. Let's reload. Oh my god, activities. No, it's not working. Why? Slash activity ID. So if I go here, okay, so I think that this is related to how we navigate through. Yeah, I need to say this slash here, slash activities slash the activity key. We have some funny colors here. I don't know why. Let me look. So let me clean the URL. Oh, it works. It works fine. So this command, I forgot this beginning slash, and it was making a big problem. Okay, let me see if I can remove the slash here. Yeah, so removing the slash here was actually fine. Okay, lots of trial and error because this is like the first time I use this library. I just made a tutorial for it by making a small test application, but now it works. Yeah, very cool. So now the when I go here in the activity, so where is the activity detail? In the activity detail, I am passed a new prop, which is the activity ID. Activity ID. So maybe here, instead of getting the current activity and set current activity, yeah, this was working fine because we had this so I think our system works fine even if we don't get the activity ID like from the URL. But what happens is that if we go in this URL, we are not entering the activity detail component, because basically I think we get this here. Let me see, alert X. Yes, but we could get the activity ID from the prop now because this is passed down by the component 7. So what can we do here is that if there is no current activity, I'm going to set the current activity to the activity with this activity ID. And how can we find this? So I can look in the app component here and we get all the activities which are stored. Where are they stored? So in the app component, activities. All right, activities. So I can actually pass the whole activities component. Yeah, I can actually pass all the activities which are passed to the activities component here as a prop activities. I can pass them all to activity detail. Activities equals activities. So everything is loading. In activity detail, we also get the activities as props. So if there is no current activity, what I'm going to do is set current activity, and I'm passing activities. So activities is, well, let me see, console log what I think it's just an array, and I can't reference this by I can say like activities square brackets activity ID, because I don't think, let me see, no. So we have the key inside here and I need to filter the array by key. So how can we do that? I can say activities.filter, and I'm getting for every activity I'm getting, so if I return true, here, so let's see, if item.key equals activity ID, then I return true. Otherwise I return false. Let me try. I should get the activity number 7 here. No, I get an empty array. Why? I think we are getting a different value. Okay, the problem is I need to use the double equal, or better, I am getting, let's see, console.log, I am getting the activity ID type of activity ID. I'm getting the activity ID as a string, but it's stored as an integer into the activity. So what I must do here is I can compare with parseInt, and I must, okay, defaults to base 10. Perfect. Yeah, I can do this. Okay, so what I wanted to say was that the equal sign with three equal signs in a row. Now this my font renders this weirdly, but we have 3 lines. This means strict equality, so the type must be the same, even if JavaScript has no types usually, but the type of the object, as you can see, as you saw when I ran type of, is a string. We have some basic types. Okay, so what can I do with this thing? So the activity, this is the activity. So we have an array with an object. So I must do the first item. Let's see, console.log. We should get an object here. Okay, this is the object. And so here I'm going to say set current activity, this object here, but I'm going to say like const activity equals right, set current activity, and it works. Perfect. Okay, so now, for example, I load this URL and it works. Awesome. We should get an empty state here. I'm not getting the empty state anymore because I need to check if we have an activity ID. So if there is an activity ID, we are going to do this thing here. Otherwise, return the empty screen. Let me see. No. Alert X. No, we don't get alert. So we don't get alert because the empty state screen. So now, thanks to the router, we only get the activity detail if we have something after the activities route here. So we have a number, and right now nothing happens, nothing appears, because we should say that empty state screen appears if the path is this. And the empty state screen is only imported here. Now we don't need it anymore in the activity detail, but we need it here. So here where was it? Okay, we don't have any error anymore, and can't resolve. Okay, I'm using the wrong path. Activities / empty state screen. No, module not found. Activities empty state screen. Oh, in activity detail. Yeah, I should move that. Activities, I don't need to enter .js. I think it's more clean. And I'm going to move empty state screen into activities. All right, let me see. Okay, we got it. Select an activity. And okay. It's not working. Why? Why it's not working? It was working a minute ago. and now it's not working anymore. Why? So we get a lot of errors here which I don't understand. Cannot read property title of null. It's interesting. So I go in activity detail and I search for title. So this should be the error, but for some reason the line of this error is not pointing me to the right place, which should be the goal of a developer tool. Okay, it's not, so I just went into the component and I searched for title, which was the origin of the problem. Cannot read property title of null, and this means we don't have a current activity now. So let me see. Let me remove this if, because this is what I added before the error. No, probably still there. Set current activity. Maybe I can say return return div maybe. Probably I need to return. Okay. So what I did was this, basically. Previously it was working because I returned the empty component from here, the empty state screen component here after I say set current activity. But now I was setting the current activity and I wasn't returning anything. So the rest of the component was going on, assuming that there was a current activity. So now I fixed this problem, and yeah, I think we did a lot of things in this video, and I'm going to close it now and see you in the next video.